Welcome everyone to the Masters of Scale live strategy session presented in alliance with Capital One Business. I'm Jodine Dorsey, VP of Live Events here at Wait What, the company behind Masters of Scale. Hello to all of the newcomers in the chat. Welcome. As many of you know, Strategy Session is a reoccurring live event we put together where the Masters of Scale community gathers to meet, share ideas, and co-elevate with each other on this entrepreneurial journey we call life. Believe it or not, this is our first virtual strategy session of 2024. Is it just me, or is this year just flying by? There's so much to discuss in the world of entrepreneurship, which is why every strategy session begins with a central theme to help us focus on the overall discussion. Last year, we did a series of sessions covering the ways in which AI has been integrated into the modern workplace. Months later, AI is still top of mind for leaders across all industries. People are looking to the future and wondering what's next. So I'm happy to announce that this month's theme is AI leading change. AI has shown amazing potential for improving efficiency in the workplace, but we all know this technology could do so much more. It can transform how we think about our health, improve how we communicate with each other across cultures and borders, and help us look at the future differently. We've got an amazing show for you tonight that is only going to dig deep into this critically important topic. To kick things off, Reid Hoffman will be conducting a live AI workshop with the team behind the innovative healthcare education app Rune. So get those pencils sharpened because we're learning a lot today. Later in our show, Earth Species Project co-founder Asa Raskin will join Reid for a special fireside chat. The pair will discuss the groundbreaking research coming out of ESP and its impact on how we all use AI, which you will not want to miss. During today's strategy session, we also want to hear from you. Throughout the show, feel free to drop your comments, questions, and shout outs in the chat. I'm always trying to point to where the chat is here, but don't be shy. This is your moment. We'd love to hear from you all. In fact, I'd love to hear from everyone right now. Recently, I was talking to our friends at Capital One Business, specifically the team working out of the Capital One Lab. If you're not familiar with the lab, they're a research and innovation team that explores the intersection of finance and cutting edge technologies like AI. And it got me thinking, what's the most unexpected use of AI that you found in your business or even in your personal life? Something that made you and your team really stop and say, I didn't know we could do that. Let us know what you think in the chat. Let us know your answer. And it might be selected by our moderation team and read out at the end of the show. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to get this show rolling. And I think it's about time that we bring out our Masters of Scale founding host. He's the co-founder of LinkedIn, a partner at Greylock, and the leading voice of our show. Please welcome Reid Hoffman. Hi, Reid.
Hi, Jodine. Great to see you. I'm remembering I need to go get a new pair of wooden glasses, but, from the previous slide. But other than that, I am so excited to be here.
I love those glasses on you, Reid. I am so excited you're here as well. To me, no one is a better advocate for AI learning change than you, Reid Hoffman. How about we start getting into some specifics? Let's dive into this workshop. Now, I bet most of you here tonight have already integrated in AI into your businesses in some way, but you might be asking yourselves, now what? Or how do we do this better? During this live workshop, Reid, our host, will be answering questions like that and providing valuable takeaways for any business leader taking advantage of the AI revolution. At Masters of Scale, we always talk about democratizing entrepreneurship. Well, the founders joining us for this workshop specialize in democratizing vital medical information. So important. Please welcome Arun Ranganathan and Vikram Bhaskaran to tell you a little bit more about their company, Rune.
Hi, my name is Vikram, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Rune. And I'm joined today by
Arun, hi. I'm the other co-founder of Arun, and I'm the CTO.
I was at Pinterest working in Silicon Valley when my father was diagnosed with a rare neurodegenerative condition called ALS. And because my dad was in India, we had such limited access to neurologists and real experts.
And I come at this from a very similar place. My father has been diagnosed with dementia. That disaggregated journey that you go through when you're trying to find information was actually kind of painful for all of us, right? But we did find ourselves sharing resources very widely. I've known Vikram for about 20 plus years. We both worked at Pinterest together.
And so we both had that moment of like, imagine if we could apply the craft, the discipline, the human capital that we did at Pinterest, which is an amazing app, but really to a place where people most need the internet to shine.
I guess that was the aha moment, which is, could we apply all the things we learned about search and design to health? Rune is now actually the product I wish we had back then.
The app is kind of your best guide companion when you need it. We fuse together the best of medicine and the best of the lived firsthand experience, and we delivered it in a format that is easy to consume, digest, and explore at your own pace. Is there a world where we build a place online that people can trust, that doctors can send people when you leave a clinic, and really gives anyone in the world a guide to navigating any condition.
So that is how we evolved into Rune, and it started with the pain that we felt as caregivers ourselves.
Awesome. Hey, Reed.
Hey, and by the way, I agree with your opening intro that both that Pinterest is a great application, but the world needs navigation of these key issues. So, great that you're doing what you're doing. Why don't you start with kind of what you're working on? What are some of the challenging problems that you've got going on with Rune?
Awesome. We're so happy to be on the show today. I'll start off by saying, at Rune, our vision is that everyone has access to a trusted guide for health. We are a medical Q&A platform, as you just saw, where we get the world's best experts to answer questions in short form video. We imagine a world where everyone, has the doctor with incredible bedside manner in your pocket, anywhere in the world. Both Arun and I come from India. And this is important today for two reasons. One is access issues aren't going away. In medicine, you're seeing primary care doctors quit medicine. The average time you spend with a doctor is 12 to 18 minutes. And in specialty care, 6 to 8 months to find a doctor. And then on the other side, we see this tidal wave of AI-generated content. And so this infinite supply of content, right? And so the tax of sifting through what is true and what's not is going to fall on an already burdened patient and caregiver. And so that's the setting the stage read. And, two questions, right? So one is, we know you've spent lots of cycles thinking about medical assistance and what it might mean to have a doctor in your pocket. Tell us about your thoughts there. And then also just how do we think about building trust at scale in this age of infinite information and misinformation?
Well, why don't we first start with trust, and then we'll go a little bit to the other part. But trust is super important. It's actually one of our earlier Masters of Scale episode. We did the title was How to Build Trust Fast with Daniel Ek. So it's something that we interweaves through a bunch of different Masters of Scale. It's kind of a question of when you're new to building a relationship, because obviously people ultimately build trust out of a, kind of like, oh, it's reliable. I understand it. I've had time with it. It's built a relationship with me, whether it's another person or an institution or anything else. So the real question is, of course, how you accelerate that trust and preserve it, being worthy of it. And this is one of the reasons why people frequently look at referrals, like, okay, what other kinds of other people or brands? So you go, okay, well, doctor such and such, or hospital Y, or other kinds of things that are kind of referrals or brand proxies, because like, well, if I trust them, then I also trust you because they're endorsing you. Sometimes it's kind of questions around setting up things where you're like, well, you're putting your kind of money where your mouth is. So like, for example, very early days in PayPal, we did PayPal buyer protection guarantee. So it's like, no, if you buy it with PayPal, you've got extra protection, on top of the credit cards and eBay and so forth, and for what you're doing, and we'll put our money where our mouth is on the transaction. So you kind of look at other sorts of things that would lead to, kind of the kind of the acceleration of trust in terms of how things are operating, and that's the kind of thing that you look at when you're kind of when you're kind of building this kind of trust fast. Now the other part of kind of kind of this thing of the medical assistant is, there's over 8 billion people on the planet. Access to doctors, as you know, it's already the specialists, the comment you already made, among other things, is limited, no time and access, and a lot of people don't have access at all. And so I think part of what we're going to be doing is kind of training, AI to kind of be as an assistant on every smartphone. The first question will be is, do you have access to a GP? Right? Because, by the way, if you have access to a GP, then essentially, it says, okay, great, I'll talk to you and help direct it. But if you don't, then here, I'll give you some advice as best I can. And obviously you guys are thinking about AI a lot. So, how are you guys thinking about AI?
Yeah. So Reed, when we think about AI, we think about putting the human medical expert and the person with lived experience front and center. So just as Vikram said, everybody wants that feeling of a doctor with a good bedside manner accessible in their pocket. And so when we built our instant answer product, we built it to use perspectives from doctors answering specific questions. So for ALS, for example, a neurologist would answer, but also someone that has lived experience with ALS or caring for someone with ALS, depending on the question. And we never let the LLM generate an answer outside of that context, for example. It's always very specific to what's in one of our videos as part of the answer corpus that the LLM will use to answer a question. So I guess one of our questions here is, how would you think about this handheld approach, this cultivated, almost artisanal approach to medicine versus using outside sources and still maintaining trust and guardrails for AI?
Well, there's a stack of different things. I mean, you guys are smart, in-depth tech industry, tech creation, and so on. So you must understand that the human benchmark out of a performance basis is a benchmark, not perfection. Humans are not perfect in all things. And so you essentially want, kind of where AI is fitting in to be, frankly, kind of as good, or better than human. And also, because we know how to trust other human beings as well, you want humans very much in the mix. So it's that combination of things that bring that. Now, that being said, I think that there's a set of different things that I think are even pretty easily doable today to both capture the power and flexibility of AI, together with maintaining those kinds of guardrails. I mean, like, for example, you could have a kind of while in produce, like, for example, if the medical assistant said, hey, I opened by saying, hey, I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to try to help. You also, in terms of interactions, you could have a second, pass through it with is this right, to even the same model, but because part of the thing that these generative AI models do is they kind of play act in different roles trying to be supportive. And so if you had one that's kind of like, I'm trying to answer the question, and another one that's I'm cross-checking the answer, that doesn't mean it's be perfect. Then, of course, you can also do things, both of your technical backgrounds, cross-checking things in a search APIs, cross-checking things into, databases of truth. You could be running them through both an immediate kind of batch, an immediate kind of like, oh, wait, there's a flag on a score, go pay attention to this one, something's wrong. Or, like as an analysis of the whole thing and saying, okay, this kind of thing needs to happen. Now, by the way, while we're talking about doing all this stuff with machines, we'll also, of course, ultimately want to be doing the same thing with human beings, because part of what could be a really good AI enhanced medical future is a doctor is talking to the patient. You have an audio stream that's going into the cross-checking of models and goes, well, wait a minute, you might have missed something that you should have talked about, or did you see this latest information that on the case you're on? So that kind of, it's part of the reason why a lot of human institutions of truth are groups. It's a review committee for a scientific paper. It's a jury in a criminal thing. It's like, and you want to bring some of that, and AI enables all of that. And I think that obviously initially people aren't going to necessarily have a lot of trust for AI. So you brand trust AI, that doesn't work. You have to have humans in the loop in really strong ways. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of pretty essential to do that. Now, that being said, if you're not experimenting with the range of what you can do with the AI systems, which almost certainly you are given the Silicon Valley and tech background, then it'd be a mistake, because obviously the trajectory of the systems getting better, the quality getting better, everything else going there, and being able to provision like I have a specific ALS condition in India that I'm trying to navigate through, and these are what the things that's local, and and all of that gives you a much broader palette when you bring these generative AI systems, into the entire world. And so I think it'll be central to your strategy, but obviously, preserving trust, exactly as asked, bringing humans in the loop, exactly as you positioned, etc. Those will all be, I think, key parts of this.
Awesome. Well, the last sort of area of exploration, Reed, thank you for taking that so well. We thought we were amiss to not ask you about scale, since this is the Masters of Scale podcast. This company, we want to be the digital front door for health. This company only exists at scale. We're just getting started, but we have a thesis around really the way we'd build network effects is we'd invest in the doctor profile, reimagine the doctor profile. Today, doctor profiles are kind of anodyne on the web. And there's something interesting about the profile, the identity, and building doctor communities. Given your background at LinkedIn, you probably have thought deeply about profiles and identity and identity-based community. Any parallels or lessons from LinkedIn that you think will be germane to this space around doctor communities?
Well, one of the things that would be beneficial to the creation of these things now is this is another place where AI can be pretty helpful in a couple different ways. One is actually, in fact, as opposed to like form filling, like, everybody hates filling out forms. Like, oh, here, fill this in. It's like, if what you, of course, had as an assistant that's going, hey, say a little bit more about this, or even, for example, you guys probably remember Friendster. One of the clever things that Friendster created, for those who don't know what the heck I'm talking about, this is way pre-Facebook. It's even pre-MySpace. Part of what it did to get people to put in a picture was it put a little gray question mark. It's like, I want to put a picture. I don't want to be the gray question mark. Well, similarly, if your AI said, well, here's a generic profile, here's a one that's a little bit more an example of one's more personalized. Would you like one that's really you? People say, well, sure, right? Kind of like, I'd rather not be generic. I'd rather be more specific. And if it's easy because it's in conversation, and like you say, well, the kinds of things that are helpful for me, for establishing trust with your the people you're interacting with the people who are reading you, the people who are, and so it's like, okay, like maybe you'd say something about kind of like where you are, how you grew up, why you got into medicine, kind of like how long you've been doing this, and kind of going through a whole set of questions that it could then craft that into something that kind of presents well. And by the way, it's also an easy way to even create, like kind of video profiles in as much as useful, because one of the benefits, just as people watching the three of us right now, one of the benefits of video is that video, we naturally as human beings, we have a tendency to trust, who we can see and touch, and trust other people as long as they're behaving in warm and compassionate and intelligent and other kinds of ways. And so, an AI can even prompt them, because most people, you say, take a camera and do it. Like, oh, I'm a little nervous about doing the video. But most people can respond to something and say, hey, we're just going to kind of go through and do a little bit of a dialogue here. And then you could even have the AI edit it, right? I mean, there's all kinds of ways where that becomes a presenting the human being in very good ways.
That's super insightful. We haven't thought about AI for profile building. And so I think that leaves us with an interesting, rich area for exploration.
Exactly. Well, I think, unfortunately, we're out of time, even given the crucial mission. But it's been awesome talking with you, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Reed.
Hi, Reed. Reed, you are showing my age when you said Friendster, and I just clearly went straight to my username. I remember Friendster all so well. Reed, one of my favorite things about watching you do these workshops is that some of the questions can be so specific, but you use language just to make it easy to approach, easy to understand. It's a universal idea. Do you think about that? Is that a conscious decision to make every time you answer these questions in our strategy sessions?
Well, I think it's conscious kind of in the following way, which is, what are you saying to something that's useful to hopefully most, if not the vast majority of the master scale community and the people you're talking to? And I have a little, like, it's kind of like, it's not like the angel and the demon, but it's like a little like, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Kind of like little mini Reed sitting on the shoulder going, have you said that in a way that your mom and other people would understand what you're saying? And then also, because one of the things I love about the entrepreneurial and the scale journey is that they're different, and so just going all the way down to one specific doesn't help. So you answer in terms of first principles. You answer in terms of, here's a theoretical framework. You answer in terms of, here's a way to think about it, because that gives you, both with are you expressing yourself simply enough, and then also, are you taking in principles that somebody might be able to say, I see how that might apply to the path that I'm on, to the thing I'm building, the thing I'm doing. And, obviously that's part of what we try to do in our democratizing entrepreneurship,
I know, that's right.
which you spoke of earlier.
No, that's right. Thank you. Thank you, Reed. And thank you again to Arun and Vikram from Rune for joining us. I really look forward to seeing where your business goes from here. Just like our partners at Capital One Business, we here at Masters of Scale are big fans of emerging entrepreneurs as well, just like you said, Reed. And given that May is Small Business Month, Reed, we wanted to introduce you to a couple of small businesses that we love and give the owners a chance to ask you some burning questions. Are you ready?
Always. This will be fun.
Yeah, it is. All right. First up is Tyrell Junius, co-founder and COO of Tiami Networks. He's part of the African Diaspora Network's Accelerating Black Leadership and Entrepreneurship. They go by ABLE Accelerator Program. Shout out to ABLE. He pre-recorded his question for you, Reed. So, all right, Nuri, let's roll that clip.
Hi, my name is Tyrell Junius. I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer at Tiami Networks. Our company is pushing the boundaries with the latest technologies like 5G, networks, and artificial intelligence to revolutionize how we interact with the places we work, live, and shop. Imagine a city where systems understand and communicate what's happening around them in real time, from detecting a sudden traffic slowdown to predicting when a park will be busiest, to helping small businesses better understand location and retail intelligence. So, how will AI integration impact the scalability of these interconnected wireless systems in our cities and towns? Also, how do you think AI will change our everyday experiences in these intelligent cities?
Yes, we're definitely on AI system, and I think one of the things that we talk about in the tech industry a lot is this kind of agentic new universe. And I think where we're going to see is I think we're going to see agents in lots of different places. I think there will be one or more agents for each individual. I think there'll be agents at work. I think there'll be agents for retail. I think there's going to be city traffic and city coordination agents. And not only are we as human beings going to be interacting with them, but I think the agents are also going to be interacting with each other. I think that hasn't no one really has a good sense of what that's going to really fully look like. But obviously, this is one of the things that applications like yours will ultimately get into. And then, of course, now you begin to get into the question of like, what's the timing and spacing of how this plays out? Because right now you're like, well, I see these chatbots that I can kind of have these interesting conversations with. What does that whole thing look like? And the answer is we're going to be building and exploring. But it's like, okay, which things are the key ones? Like, for example, if I have my own agent, it says, well, I should go shop here. Or if I'm interacting with agents of whether it's traffic or kind of navigation, is say, hey, it may even be cross-checking things. Like you say, well, I've got my navigation system and say, yeah, but everyone's following that same detour. Maybe you should do this other detour. All of that is part of the future we're going to be seeing. And obviously part of the challenge on specific applications is going to be, how do you navigate, like, what's the timing of it? Because, there's one sense in which parts of this 20 years from now are easy to predict. But startups are like, what are we predicting? What are we doing today, this week, this month? And what does that journey play out over the years? Because with startups, you have to get those initial use cases, really solid. Anyway, so great work. Thank you for the question. And all right, let's bring back Jodine.
Thank you, Reed, for that response. I hope Tyrell was there to hear this. That was so interesting. I want to keep this moving. I want to hear from our second emerging entrepreneur, Anthony T.J. Bennett. He is the founder of Soul Play in Atlanta and happens to be a Capital One business customer. Soul Play is a stylish streetwear retailer that is rapidly expanding its impact in the Black community through esports and mental health awareness initiatives. Such a great combination. You may have seen TJ and Soul Play featured in our recent episode of our travel series, Offsite Adventures. Here's his pre-recorded question for you, Reed.
What's going on, Reed? My name is Anthony T.J. Bennett, co-owner and CEO of Soul Play. And Soul Play is a community impact store that leverages our brand partnerships to create impact in the communities that we serve. As a local business owner with e-commerce capabilities, I'm always looking for ways to replicate the in-store experience for our online shoppers. Our question is this: with the introduction of AI chatbots and assistants, how do you see AI augmenting the e-commerce experience for the consumer while maintaining the personality and authenticity that people get from in-store shopping? How do you think that experience will continue to evolve with tools like metaverse and virtual spaces?
Well, with the streetwear retailer, I was initially worried you were going to ask me a question about that because I would know nothing. And then go, well, good luck. You know 10x more, 1,000x more than I do. But with the kind of question of what we're doing with kind of e-commerce, the most natural thing is kind of like where, a little bit like we're talking about the agents everywhere in the earlier question. The thing here is, again, well, where could be the agents really useful? Like, for example, answering questions about like what might be useful to you, being able to, like, for example, typically when you have a human, kind of talking, it's like, well, how many sales are they making? And the kind of the sales associate has to, kind of keep moving through. Whereas, for example, an AI can spend as much time as the person wants in like, well, which shoe or which thing is the right thing for you? Which, what kinds of things might you be looking for? How would you like them? What like, answering questionabilities on durability and fashion and showing videos and like saying, oh, here's a video of something that you might really like to see and other kinds of things. And so I think that kind of personal touch through the kind of the agent universe is, I think, going to be quite there. And obviously, it could be also, an AI can also, with some memory characteristics, these are coming, say, hey, I'm your ongoing associate here. It's like, when you come back and say, hey, I'm Reed, I was here before. It's like, yeah, I remember we had a great conversation about X. So what can I help you with now? And how did those things work out for you? I hope you're really delighted, and that kind of follow up, and all kinds of places where you can amplify the human touch on the whole spectrum by bringing AI in. And by the way, if you say, well, I'm worried about it being the only touch, say, well, as an amplifier of human beings, like there's a bunch of conversation that has with the AI and then crossing over to a human being, and then having the AI plus the human being is also a very natural way to do that. So I think those would be some of the things to look at. And I think there's a bunch of technology providers who are working to enable businesses like yours and others for this. It's, in the techno lingo, it's the agentic universe. And so with that, time to bring back Jodine.
And Reed, while you were speaking, my mind started going to Jodine, the AI personal shopper who goes to different sites for me and shops for me, talk to their AI agent that's doing the shopping. It's just, the possibilities are just mind-blowing and endless. Thank you both to Tyrell and TJ for those thought-provoking questions. Now it's time to move on to our next segment of the evening, and it's going to be a good one. For our special fireside chat, Reed and his guests will be doing a deep dive on how AI is used to help understand animal communication and discussing ways this technology will impact the way we all communicate in the upcoming years. Please join me in welcoming our special guest for the evening. He is the co-founder and president of Earth Species Project, an international nonprofit dedicated to using AI to decode animal communication and transforming how human beings relate to the rest of nature. Over the past 2 years, ESP's research team has delivered a number of firsts in the field of animal communication. These include the development of the first ever benchmarks and foundation models, the fundamental building blocks for the use of AI in this field. Please join me in welcoming Aza Raskin. Hey, Aza.
Oh, thanks so much, Jodine. Nice to see you, and nice to see you, Reed.
Nice. Well, I think I'm going to drop off to let you two get into it, but it's such an honor to meet you, Aza, and I love the work that you guys are doing.
Oh,
Jodine, we can't wait to see you a little later.
All right, I'll let you guys go.
So, Aza, we've known each other a long time, Mozilla, and I think I was one of the earliest people you talked to about this. But so, tell us about the Earth Species Project. Who, what is it? How did your interest in animal communication begin?
Yeah. Well, so we're a nonprofit. We're a little over 15 people now. We're a small group, but we work with like 40 plus universities and biologists, sort of network of a network style. And our goal is to translate animal communication, or if I'm even more bold, translate animal language. Can we learn how to listen to whales and orangutans, tool using crows? And it turns out whales have been passing down culture for like 34 million years vocally. Human beings have been doing it for what, like 100,000, 200,000? So this is a culture that has lasted longer, 85 times longer than our entire species. How I got interested was actually randomly, I was listening to a NPR piece as I drove down 280 towards Sandhill. And they were talking about these animals, gelada monkeys. They live in the Ethiopian highlands. They have huge manes, big fangs, weirdly, mostly grass and bugs. And the researchers said they had the largest vocabulary of any primate except for humans. And I'm like, I've never even heard of these guys. In fact, the researchers swore that the animals talked about them behind their backs. And it was like, okay, but why are you guys then out there with a hand recorder, hand transcribing? Shouldn't we be using AI? And I started looking into it. If I didn't know about geladas, are there other animals? And it turns out parrots will lean over for the first week and a half of their chick's life and whisper a unique name into their ear until they can babble, babble, until they get it right. And they will use that unique name for the rest of their life. And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, wow, actually, if we really can, if there's really a there for translating animal language, like what are the profound implications for animals speaking, having consciousness? Isn't this moment where, like, if the telescope as a new tool taught us that Earth was not the center, won't AI in this sense teach us that humanity is not the center? And you're exactly right, Reed. The first person, actually, you were the first person outside of my core small friend group that I went to talk to. It was like, what, 2015, something around there,
Yeah,
2013?
something like that. Yeah.
And it was your vision of being like, that is an idea to go do, that gave me the confidence to go co-found with my co-founders, Katie Zakarian and so on, and got us to where we are now.
Yeah, no, I remember it's one of those things that sometimes happens in kind of all forms of pitching. When you were
Yeah.
talking about this, I was like, oh, if we can even advance the ball a little bit, it will be epic.
Yeah.
Right? Because even some more glimmerings of understanding here, because we all know, when we think about it, that animals are smarter, they have language, then we reflexively think they have language that we don't fully understand, but know that it happens. So let's dive a little bit into some of the, give a little bit of some of the kind of specifics of things that, kind of like as you begin to learn, like what are the things, like the dolphins and orcas or other things as ways of doing it, and then say a little bit about kind of what the hope for LLMs and generative AI tools are as well.
Yeah. Well, again, it's just like the more you look, the more you see. So off the coast of Norway every year, there's a group of dolphins that all speak one way and a group of false killer whales that all speak a different way. And they come together and they hunt. And when they do, they hunt in this super pod and they speak a third different thing. And you're like, well, actually, this is the perfect thing for generative language models to be able to translate to and from these essentially different dialects, different languages into their lingua franca, lingua vela.
Lingua aquatis or something, whatever.
Right, there we go. Good branding. So we are really starting to see lots of hints of decoding the more we look. And I'll just give like two examples of the way like large language models and generative AI are like helping us get there. The first is you're like, okay, how do you go about translating a language without any examples or Rosetta Stone? And it was 2017 that we started Earth Species Project. And it was because suddenly the field of AI learned how to translate between human languages without any examples. And it's this beautiful, brilliant thing where you can ask AI to build a shape that represents, well, anything, but let's say language. Imagine a galaxy, every star is a word, words that mean similar things are near each other, and then words that share a conceptual relationship, share a distance and direction. So king is to man as woman is to queen, so king is the same distance direction as woman is to queen. The core insight was, and for all the technical people out there, these things are called embeddings. The core insight is that you could build a shape that represents English, a shape that represents German, and just rotate one shape on top of the other to do translation. And even though there are words in one that don't exist in the other, the point which is dog ends up in the same spot in both. And that's sort of profound. You're like, yeah, but English and German are related languages. But it turns out it works for every human language. Esperanto, Finnish, Urdu, Turkish, they all fit in a universal human meaning shape that AI has somehow deduced. It's found this universal hidden underlying structure that unites all of us. And we're like, well, one, that's beautiful. And two, what happens if we build that for animal communication? Which parts overlap, which parts don't? So that's sort of like step A. Step B is, well, everyone's seen, you can now type in text and get out an image from AI. You type in text, you get out a video. That's Sora. This is multimodal translation. And the general rule is everything that can be translated will be translated. And we're starting to use this to translate from one modality to another. So the scientists we work with put little sensors on, say, whales that record video, audio, motion. And if you can translate what does one whale say to make another whale dive, well, whale strikes, or ship strikes are one of the leading causes of whale death. If you could learn how to say, please move down, but not in a way that makes them scared, but just says, hey, there's some food down there, you can really start getting towards some applications. And so it's that multimodality that says, even if we can't do this cool rotation thing, we know we're going to be able to get to some kind of translation.
Well, and part of course, there's you and I could geek out about this forever because I think it's the very important thing about understanding consciousness and sentience, even better
Yeah.
understanding human beings and our position, and we do that on occasion. But
Yes.
just because we have kind of our masters of scale
Mm.
crew here, and they go, well, okay, this is super cool, but what does this mean for me, right?
Right.
And so, what do you think about how AI can help us become better communicators? What are some of the ways that not just in the kind of function of kind of like obviously understanding other languages, being able to speak. It's part of the
Yeah.
whole like, I presume you saw I did this read versus read AI thing a couple
I
couple
did.
weeks
Yeah.
ago. um, and what are the things that it can do to help everyone think about how do we listen better? How do we understand
Yeah.
better? How do we communicate better? What are some of your thoughts there?
I love this question because I think it's undoubted that technology has made us all like we speak a lot more, but I don't think it's made us generally speaking better listeners. And so then the question is, how do we use AI to help us listen better? Um, and I'll give three different examples of increasingly like large scale. The first one is there's a really beautiful measure that a nonprofit called More in Common does called perception gap. And it's trying to ask the question, when I am trying to model you and guess your beliefs, how is the gap between reality and my perception of you? So an example might be if you ask Democrats what percentage of Republicans think all Muslims are bad, Democrats will estimate it's like 85%, but if you actually ask Republicans, it's less than 15%. And so it's really interesting because we have perception gaps. When we are fighting with the other side, we're not really fighting with the other side. We're fighting with a misconception, a mirage of the other side. So what does AI have to do here? Well, it's hard to measure the truth of things, but it's easy to measure the truth of beliefs about beliefs. Like I can just measure, like, do you see the other side correctly? Now imagine Twitter or Facebook running AI that was just looking like what media is increasing the perception gap? What media is decreasing it? What media helps us see better together? And of course, the next thought is, well, the things that make like that prey on a false sense of the other side, the things that drive us most apart, those are the things that are clickbait, that are probably mis and disinformation, are the things that are amping up fears. So if we just used AI to amplify content that let us see each other accurately, a sort of massive nonviolent computational communication, like that would be a way of healing, I think, the wounds that help suture like our nations back together. And if I jump to just like one more here, because I think, well, we love nerding out.
Yes.
Most of the biggest problems in the world are collaboration, coordination problems, right? They're multipolar traps. That's the structure of inequality. That's the structure of climate change. What happens if we start to have AI agents interacting with each other? You start them with English and you evolve a new language for humans to speak that is especially good for coordination, collaboration, solving multipolar traps. Do you see where I'm sort of going with this? Is that we've never had a language that you evolved for a specific end that could help us do the hardest thing that humans need to do, which is coordinate better. So I think that might change the very nature of how game theory works. So I have more on this, but this is like, I think I want people to think like locally and then like really big. What can we do?
Yeah. Yeah. It's both individually, but also system. And it's one of the
Exactly.
ways that I love that you and Katie and all the folks there at Species Project and a number of others think about this. So as a slightly different focus, in addition to your work at Earth Species Project, you're also the co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology, a nonprofit advocates ethical uses and protections for digital infrastructure. With the rapid acceleration of AI technology, there's been a lot of hand-wringing and doomer thinking in the general public. But given your work at ESP, you're clearly not anti-AI. So, how do we scale this technology thoughtfully without hampering innovation?
Yeah, also great question. I mean, to start with a metaphor, sometimes I think that AI is sort of like 24th century technology crashing down on the 21st century. And just imagine the 21st century tech crashing down on 16th century governance. And you have the king sitting around and he's like, all right, we have to deal with like telegram, radio, television, internet, social media, all at the same time. You're like,
Podcasting.
I don't know, what are they going to do? Right, there we go, right?
Yes.
The king's going to be like, I don't know, send out the knights. Like that form of governance wouldn't hold. And this isn't a form of hand-wringing. It's just like, I think, an appraisal. And so I think one really simple thing we could do that I'd love everyone to start repeating is, well, if we as a US are going to spend $1 trillion in the next couple of years on AI capabilities, shouldn't we at least be spending 1% of that on upgrading governance itself? Like the US was founded on the idea that a group of people could come together, think really hard about how do you make a form of governance which is trustworthy, that is hard to capture, hard to corrupt. And that's lasted 250 years, but it was made with 17th century technology. We're now in the 21st century technology. Now is the refounding moment where we have zero knowledge proofs and AI and distributed trust systems. Like, let's go put 1% of everything we're putting into AI capabilities into upgrading how we want to govern it, because there is no one right answer. This is not like here's a policy. This is about how we navigate an increasingly complex situation.
Yep, I completely agree. Like technology redefines it, and so how do you navigate that?
Exactly. I'm really excited about that. The other big thing I would say here is that often we'll hear, I'm sure you hear this all the time, like, oh, but we can't slow down because we have to beat China. We have to beat our rivals. And I would just say that, well, you don't want to let your rivals define the nature of the race you're in. Like, we beat China to social media, which means we beat China to sort of a misinformed, polarized society with mental health issues. Instead, what we want to do is figure out, how do we race to the most strengthened version of our democracies so our values win? And that's not a free-for-all. That's a different kind of thing. Okay, so you and I started talking about the possibility of decoding animals and animal communication for, like, as you said, a decade, and you saw the vision honestly really immediately. You've been our largest and most generous funder. Like, you're the reason why we get to even say that in the next 6 years we will make contact or have the technical capability of making contact with these 34 million-year-old cultures. What was it that you saw in ESP that really caught your attention way before AI was even a thing people were talking about?
Well, what we all hope in creating the future and use of technology is that you make the future a lot better than the now. And whether that's, obviously the medical stuff we were talking about earlier, whether it's, kind of like how we live our lives and what kinds of work we do and all the rest. And something that I think, is part of the vision that you've already kind of shared was actually, in fact, to be much, much better for kind of the world, inclusive of us very strongly, if we had a better understanding of whales and dolphins and crows and parrots and primates and all of these folks, because they are actually speaking. Can we hear them? Can we understand? Right. And that is what we aspire to as human beings. And part of the reason we say our, raison d'etre is bringing consciousness and compassion and helping ourselves evolve in that. And I was like, oh, this is a key step. And maybe we're there technologically. Let's take the shot. And then, of course, it's you and your crew and Katie, kind of smart and dedicated to doing it, because that's another part that goes into the entrepreneurial ethos. And so that was the reason why I was like it was yes on the spot.
Well, it's really shifted. It's really transformed my life. And so, like, it's a deep thank you. I always think, like, we do not change when we speak. We change when we listen. And then one final question, when you spend 10,000 hours doing something, you become a master at it. You've spent many 10,000 hours, you're a master in many things. And from all of those, like, from that mastery, like, what's an opinion that you have for this coming world that your peers do not have?
Well, there's a number. So the question is, which one? Because this is a great question. This is a question that people should ask themselves, and it's not the version that, what do you think that no one else of the 8 billion people think? Because that's probably where you're crazy. It's relative to the zones of expertise, a community, kind of a background and so forth. And maybe I'll just do one that's kind of in the technological thing that has, some, call it contrarian lack of popularity among some of the climate change people, but there's other climate change people who also think this, which is, I tend to think that of your scale solution to any world problem, it can be criminal justice, it can be economic justice, and others, but also climate change. 30 to 80% of the solution is a technological solution. So you have to ask yourself what the technological strategy is. And in particular, when I look at climate change, I go, look, we need to be massively investing in the technology of it. It's one of the reasons I invest in fusion. It's one of the reasons I support some people doing some geoengineering. Oh, geoengineering, you're not solving the real problems. Like, we may need to buy 5 to 10 years for the clean energy to work. And if you need it, you want to be ready to do it without doing something catastrophic. And so, that technological focus when it gets to most everything, but climate change inclusive, those are some of the things that at least some of my crew, looks a little skeptically at me for. So, anyway, so look, as you and I both know, we could go for hours because we could geek out on all this stuff. Hopefully other people were entertained, because we were, for sure.
We were. Yep.
But so now let's bring back Jodine.
Awesome.
You talking about geeking out? I think all of us, the chat has been on fire. Everyone has been geeking out on this conversation. Reed, Asa, amazing. Asa, don't go anywhere, because I do want to ask you a question. We got a few questions from the chat, but this one just really resonated with me. This person said, and I didn't get the name, so my apologies to whoever asked this question, but what animals collaborate the best? And I know you're still doing research on this, but just be curious, what animals collaborate best that we humans can actually emulate?
Such a great question. Sometimes I wonder whether, if human beings had a social structure like ants, whether climate change would even be a problem to begin with, because they're a eusocial animal. Now, I'm not sure if I'd want to have like such specific castes and jobs, so don't hear me as saying that. But the great sociobiologist E.O. Wilson has, I think, one of, to me, the most prophetic and profound insights, and that is selfish individuals do outcompete altruistic individuals, but altruistic groups outcompete selfish groups, and everything else is commentary. That is to say, groups that cooperate better outcompete the ones that don't. And so it was actually Darwin who first asked this question: where do our noble traits come from? The things that we rise up and towards. Well, those are things that require some kind of sacrifice for a greater thing, for a greater whole. Those all come from selection that's happening at the group level, not at the individual level. If you only select for the individual thing, like in your body, that's a kind of cancer, when a part of you grows. And so that's why I'm reaching towards these eusocial animals, bees, ants, as an answer. I think the core question of morality, at least to me, is what is right relationship between the group and the individual. So the group works well together, but you're not trotting on the rights of the individual.
Reed, any words to add?
Well, as is always, part of the reason you can see that Asa and I geek out is I thought Asa's answer was extremely thoughtful. I don't know if there are. I mean, part of what Asa was gesturing at was, if we could collaborate better as human beings, we could solve more macro problems. So like climate change or other kinds of things. And that's part of the eusocial part of that. I don't know if there's other animals that, and I'm not saying that skeptically, but this is one of the things we'll learn from their thesis project, that blend our individuality with collective, action. And so I don't know if there's there's probably fragments of things, things about maybe the dolphin orca whale hunting pattern,
Right.
or adopting certain languages or protocols, or maybe things in that. But the one of the things we deeply value, as Asa was gesturing at, is our individuality and freedom and choice. That, of course, also is what creates a certain amount of chaos and like, oh, I'm all right, Jack. I don't care about the environment. Things that we need to navigate. So, anyway, that's just throwing up some additional Jackson Pollock paint on the canvas that
Mhm.
that Asa was painting on.
Well, thank you, Asa, for joining us tonight. Thank you, Reed. This fireside chat is being chalked up as one of my favorites at our strategy sessions. This was so good. And I can't wait, Asa, to learn more about what ESP is doing and the developments that come the following years. Excellent work. Excellent work as always, Reed. Thank you both so much.
No, thank you guys both so
Thanks,
much for having
Jodine.
me.
Thanks, Asa.
Wow. What a show this has been. How is everybody in the chat feeling? I want to take a minute to shout out a couple of our favorite answers to the questions that we asked earlier today. I want to give some love to Clayton Bailey. Clayton said, besides professional uses, I've been using ChatGPT for DMing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign and creating songs for bards. It's cool that I'll now be able to use it for creating character voices or song tunes. I'm curious to see what it will do to products. So am I, Clayton. So am I. And also want to give a big shout out to Chris Martelli. Chris said, I'm excited about using generative AI for multi-agent collaboration. Given a complex task like writing software, a multi-agent approach would break down the task into subtasks to be executed by different roles, such as a software engineer, product manager, designer, QA engineer, and so on, and have different agents accomplish different subtasks. That sounds like a good one indeed. So thank you both. We received so many awesome responses, but we want to highlight those two, and we want to say that there'll be a gift coming to you from our partners at Capital One Business. So thank you. We keep coming to these strategy sessions because we really love hearing from you. We know that there's so many nuggets of wisdom shared tonight. It could feel like you'll never be able to remember them all. Well, you don't have to. We've crafted some elegant strategy session takeaways that highlight all the key learnings from today's show and package them up so you can share them with your teams. Now, before we wrap up, we'd like for you to take part of a poll. Like you, we want to keep innovating. We want these strategy sessions to keep getting better and better. So we're giving you 10 seconds to rate how valuable you found today's session. You can find the poll on the tab on the right. If you're watching on mobile, you'll be able to find it under the video player. Make sure to collapse the chat and you'll be able to complete the poll. It's real quick, but don't hop off just yet. After this mini break, we'll be sharing a very special video with you guys about a dynamic live event we've got coming up later this year. Love that song. And we're back. We've got a few well-deserved thank yous to get through before we see that awesome live event video. So first, thank you to the entire team at Capital One Business for being such extraordinary premier brand partners and such generous patrons for entrepreneurs and small businesses. We love learning and co-elevating with you. A huge thank you again to Asa Raskin from Earth Species Project for joining our fireside chat. Of course, a big thank you to our founding host with the most, Mr. Reed Hoffman. Thanks so much to our guest founders from Rune for taking part in our workshop. We love hearing your story. A huge shout out to the two entrepreneurs who submitted their questions to Reed. Thanks again to Tiami Networks' Tyrell Junius and Soul Play's TJ Bennett. An epic gift box from Capital One Business and Masters of Scale will be heading your way. Thank you to the entire Masters of Scale team for putting this event together with our multi-talented leader, Chineme Ezekwena, and our partners at Brand Live. To all of you watching at home or in your office, thank you for joining us. We always love having you here and hoping you'll continue being part of the Masters of Scale community, one of the best networking communities on the planet. So be sure to join us on June 20th, where we'll be closing out our AI Leading Change series. We also have some exciting news to share. I almost forgot to share this from the Masters of Scale. Rapid Response is expanding to its own dedicated podcast with 2 episodes released every week. So make sure to search for and check out on your podcast app, Rapid Response, and subscribe. This week, host Bob Safian talks to Airbnb co-founder Brian Chesky. It's a special 2-part episode. I promise you don't want to miss it. So please be on a search for Rapid Response. You can also find us at Masters of Scale on all social media platforms. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us, yes, on TikTok and not Friendster. Do all the things. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you're having a wonderful May. Stay safe. And as always, we are honored to be part of your entrepreneurial journey. We'll see you next month. I'm Jodine Dorsey. It's been a pleasure hosting you tonight. And now, as promised, we are going to close out the night with a video trailer from our marquee event coming this October, the Masters of Scale 2024. Applications and registrations are now open at mastersofscalesummit.com. Let's roll that clip.
What's said at the summit stays at the summit.
Everybody will have to pay attention.
Almost no one sees this coming.
The thing that I love about it, and it makes me so optimistic, is that it's just creating more dialogue.
We have to deal with inequities.
Leadership is about the parts.
You know, it's not about me. It's about me becoming a part of it and just evolving it and making it better.
I'm here to tell you that, wow, human innovation's incredible.
This is Masters of Scale Summit.